Previously, we talked about the topmost decayed Rust Belt cities in the United States. Those cities lost a massive amount of their population from deindustrialization. Some of the Rust Belt cities have revitalized, such as Pittsburgh, but lots of them are dilapidated, like Camden, New Jersey, and Gary, Indiana. The next belt of focus is one that has seen a dramatic population increase in the last few decades. This would be known as the Sun Belt. The Sun Belt is a geographic area in the United States which consists of the southeastern and southwestern states. Geographically, it's associated with areas below 36 degrees north latitude. The name comes from the fact that these areas generally see higher rates of sunshine hours per year, coupled with warm average temperatures the whole year. For example, Miami, Florida sees close to 3,200 hours of sunshine a year, while Phoenix, Arizona sees close to 3,900 hours of sunshine a year. In comparison, Detroit, Michigan sees around 2,450 hours of sunshine a year, and Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania only sees around 2,000 hours of sunshine a year. And winters in the north are pretty cold considering it's mostly within a continental climatic zone. Of course, one of the reasons the Sun Belt is becoming more populated is that the weather is nicer. But there are several other reasons that will be discussed later. First, a geographic analysis of the Sun Belt will be discussed, which will be broken down into four broad geographic categories: physical, demographical, economical, and geopolitical. After that, reasons associated with the growth of the Sun Belt will be talked about. Before we get started though, be sure to subscribe to my channel, Our World, Our Planet, Our Home if you like geography videos like this. Let's get started. The U.S. is a large nation, and the Sun Belt covers expansive lands, which makes subregions physically different from one another. Let's start in the West. Southern California, as well as Arizona, Nevada, and New Mexico, have rugged terrains, which feature high mountains. The major mountain chains in this area include the Sierra Nevada Mountains and the Rocky Mountains. The Sierra Nevada Mountains feature the highest point in the continental United States, Mount Whitney, which is around 14,500 feet in elevation. A fun fact about Mount Whitney is that it's only 80 miles away from the lowest elevation in the U.S., Death Valley, which is 282 feet below sea level. In between California and Nevada and Arizona are deserts, including the Mojave Desert and the Sonoran Desert. Both have varying elevations, from below sea level to several thousand feet high. Further east are the Rocky Mountains, which extend from the Canadian border down to northern New Mexico. The highest peak in New Mexico is Wheeler Peak at 13,176 feet. Further east into Texas, the ruggedness starts to decrease, although western Texas has some mountainous topography, with Guadalope Peak being the state's highest peak at 8,751 feet. Moving to central and eastern Texas, the elevation starts to decline dramatically. Eastern Texas, where Houston is located, is on the Gulf Coastal Plain, which extends into the southeastern states of Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida. All of those states mentioned are very flat, with Alabama having the highest peak out of the states in the far northern part of the state in the Appalachians. Florida is famous for having the lowest, highest elevation peak, Britton Hill, which measured only 345 feet. All of the Sunbelt states share one meteorological attribute in common, which is that they are generally mild to warm in the winter months. But climatic zones between the subregions are considerably different. Starting in Southern California, coastal areas have a Mediterranean climate, which features warm to hot dry summers and mild to warm with somewhat wet winters. Inland Southern California, like Arizona, Nevada, New Mexico, and West Texas, has an arid desert climate, with extremely hot summers and mild to warm winters. But deserts sometimes do get frigid in the winter, especially at night. Occasionally, snow can fall during the coldest months. Further east into Texas, the climatic zone changes to humid subtropical. Cities such as Houston have extremely hot and humid summers and mild to warm winters, while Dallas, further north, has hot and humid summers and mild winters. But sometimes Dallas can get cold snaps, which feature ice and snowstorms. Closer to the U.S.-Mexico border in Brownsville, Texas, it's usually always warm to hot throughout the year. The southeastern states of Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, the Carolinas, and North Florida all have similar humid subtropical climates with hot and humid summers and mild to warm winters. The only exception in this region is South Florida, which experiences hot and humid summers and warm to even hot winters. with extremely infrequent frost and freezes. Another fun fact is that Miami never recorded any measurable snow in its meteorological history. So if you really, really want to escape winter, go there. Sunbelt has a very diverse racial and ethnic makeup. The racial breakdown includes whites, blacks, Hispanics, and Asians. Starting in Southern California, the racial and ethnic demographical statistics is quite diverse. As of 2021, the whole state of California is considered a majority-minority state. 39.4% of the population is Hispanic, who are ethnically mostly Mexican, Central American, and South American. 36.8% are Caucasian, with the majority of those being German American. 15.5% are Asian, with ethnic groups consisting of Chinese, Korean, Japanese, Filipino, and Vietnamese. 6.5% are African American, mainly from African diaspora after the Civil War, and 1.7% are Native American. Further east, Arizona and Nevada have a majority Caucasian population, with both states having over 50%. A rising racial group are Hispanics, who account for 31.8% of the population in Arizona and 28.7% in Nevada. This figure has gone considerably up in the last few decades. African Americans and Asians account for less than 5% of the population each for both states. New Mexico and recently Texas now have a majority-minority Hispanic population, with New Mexico having 47.7% Hispanic and Texas having 39.9% compared to non-Hispanic whites at 36.5% and 39.3% respectively. Also, Texas has a sizable African American and Asian population. In and around Houston, there is a large Vietnamese population. Demographics start to change in the southeastern states of Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and South Carolina. Each of these states has a higher than 25% African American population, with Mississippi having the highest at nearly 38%. Finally, Florida is quite diverse. More than half of the state is Caucasian, but Hispanics make up 26.5% of the population, with many from Cuba and living in the Miami metropolitan area. 15.1% of Floridians are black, while only 4.3% are Asian. Economically speaking, states within the Sun Belt differ dramatically. California has a $3.2 trillion GDP, making it the fifth largest GDP in the world. It's also the eighth richest state in the nation. In the inland desert southwest, Nevada is the richest state, placing 24th out of 50 states in per capita income, while Arizona places 28th and New Mexico places 45th. The reasons for their lower placement are a combination of physical geographic isolation and the lack of large economic cities within the state. Texas ranks 22nd in per capita income, with the state having a $2.4 trillion GDP. Austin and Dallas are home to many technological companies, including Dell Technologies, Texas Instruments, and most recently Tesla, when Elon Musk in 2021 moved its headquarters from California to Austin, Texas. Overall, cities and metropolitan areas within Texas are economically doing well. The southeastern states to the east of Texas are amongst the poorest in the U.S. Mississippi ranks at 50th out of 50 states in per capita income, Louisiana ranks at 47th, and Alabama ranks at 46th. However, Georgia and the Carolinas fare somewhat better, with Georgia ranking at 29th, and North Carolina and South Carolina ranking at 39th and 41st respectively. Georgia most likely does better because of Atlanta being a major economic hub for the South. Finally, Florida is a mixed bag, ranking 34th in per capita income. The Miami metropolitan area has the highest GDP in the state of Florida at $345 billion, with Tampa being second to them at $145 billion. Rural areas of Florida are a lot poorer than urbanized areas, with rural Union County, Florida, having the lowest per capita income in the state and the fourth lowest in the U.S. Politics is a touchy subject, especially in 2023. I try to stay neutral when talking about it, so I'll just mention the facts and figures. Starting in Southern California, most of the major urban centers are strongly Democratic. Historically, Orange and San Diego counties leaned Republican, but in the last two presidential elections, both counties voted for Joe Biden. Also, inland California has become increasingly Democratic. This is likely from a changing demographical factor within the state. Eastward to the desert southwest, Nevada and Arizona have always been swing states, ones that could either vote Republican or Democrat. In 2016 and 2020, Democrats Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden won Nevada. However, in 2016, Donald Trump won Arizona, and in 2020, Joe Biden won there. Recently, there's been more of a Democratic sway in Arizona, with Katie Hobbs winning the governor's race and Mark Kelly winning the U.S. Senate election, both in 2022. The outlier in this region is New Mexico, which for more than a decade the state has voted for Democrats in presidential elections. On to Texas, the state has always been a Republican stronghold. As of the 2020 presidential election, Texas voted for Donald Trump, but by a tighter margin than in 2016. This could be signaling a demographical change in race and age. Heading to the southeast, politics is more homogeneous in that Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and the Carolinas are Republican strongholds. Although in 2020, North Carolina's presidential results were very tight. A 2020 outlier was Georgia, which went to Joe Biden, the first time a presidential Democratic candidate won since 1992. Lastly, Florida has an extremely changeable political geography. In the last 30 years, it was seen as a swing state, and in some presidential elections a Democrat won, and in others a Republican won, with the most memorable one being the 2000 presidential election when George W. Bush beat Al Gore there by 537 votes, allowing Bush to get the 271 electoral college votes. Recently, Florida has turned from a swing state into a Republican stronghold. In 2020, Donald Trump won Florida by a wider margin than in 2016, and Ron DeSantis won Florida by a wide margin in the 2022 gubernatorial election. This happened because of a high Cuban American voter turnout, an ethnic group who historically has voted Republican. Now that we have covered the geography of the Sun Belt, let's talk about some of the reasons why more people than ever are moving there. First, as mentioned before, climate plays a physical role. Many people hate snow, including me. Snowless winters are definitely an attribute that people look for. However, summers, especially in the south and southeast, are extremely hot and humid. But in the last half century, air conditioning has made living in these regions way more comfortable. Another reason of migration here is affordability. In the Northeast, the cost of living is very high. Also, even in areas of the Sun Belt, such as Southern California, the cost of living is astronomical. But in the South and Southeast, and some parts of the Southwest, living there is cheaper. Generally, home values are lower, and people wanting to buy can get a large house for a lesser price. Also, property taxes in southern states are a lot cheaper. In the New Jersey suburbs just outside New York City, a $500,000 house has an average property tax of around $10,000 a year. The same priced home in the Houston metropolitan area, which is larger as well, has a yearly property tax of around $3,000. And in the suburb of New Orleans, you can get a huge house for around $450,000 to $500,000 with yearly property taxes of around $2,500. A third reason of the movement is for jobs. In the last couple of decades, many companies have relocated to the Sunbelt states for the same reason of affordability. Generally, southern states have fewer regulations and cheaper taxes, so companies are drawn here for that opportunity. This is the reason why Tesla moved to Texas, for fewer regulations and at that time for COVID-related ones, and cheaper taxes. And the final reason for the move is demographic aging. Right now, the youngest baby boomer is 59 years old, and the oldest is 77. As many people retire at 65, they move elsewhere from where they worked, and elsewhere is the Sun Belt. Many older people have moved to Florida, and this will only increase as baby boomers age in the next decade. The Sun Belt will continue to see population growth in the coming years. At the same time, the area will see changing racial and ethnic demographics as well as aging. Many states here will become majority-minority states as the Hispanic population rises. Also, as of the 2020 census, nearly 21% of Florida's population is over 65, and this figure will likely rise. Overall, a big demographical change is coming within the next decade or so. What do you think will happen to the Sunbelt states in the near future? If you'd like to leave a comment saying what you think, please do. Again, thanks for watching my video. Until next time.